When I deal with clients, the number one thing I hate saying to them is I don't know. But guess what? There's many ways to say I don't know. My name is Jose Moreno. On this podcast, we discuss current and future trends in the electrical industry. Welcome to the life of an electrical contractor. On this podcast, we discuss current and future trends in the electrical industry. Welcome to the life of an electrical contractor. What's up, guys? Jose Moreno here. And on this episode, I wanted to discuss something. It's called practice of questioning. And when I say questioning, I say question everything, right? Why? Why do you want to question everything? The main reason for questions is it's to get to answers, right? But more importantly, what I wanted to jump on right now was give you two reasons or two scenarios why we don't ask questions, right? See, one is that I come across, and even in myself and in our business itself, is one of the scenarios is people are scared to ask. Okay? They're scared to ask a question. The second one is they just don't want to offend the person they're speaking to, which in reality, both don't serve you, right? Both don't help you do what? Discover the answer, right? Because ultimately, what are we looking for? Okay, we're looking for answers, right? So let's dive a little deeper on this, right? Because I wrote down a couple things here, and I wanted to create a framework of how we get to these. How do I use this practice of questioning, right? So one of the items I created or one of the items I listed is it's creating the environment, right? So why is creating the environment so important? Well, one is it's to create the right space, right? The right opportunity, the making the other person comfortable enough to want to ask a question, right? And this is whether it's your employee, whether it's your customer, whether it's your wife at home, your child at home, right? So it all comes down to creating the environment, setting the stage, right? And sometimes this takes time. Okay, sometimes this takes an ability, or it takes not necessarily an ability. It takes effort to build trust, right? To offer trust to the person that you're welcoming the questions to, and two, to know that it's a two-way street, right? You have to offer that trust to them as well, because guess what? They have to trust you enough to be able to listen to the answers you're going to give, or vice versa, right? So again, this is extremely important, because if we don't set this environment, if we don't create this environment, this space, so to say, you're going to start to, well, not start, you're definitely seeing issues, whether it's someone from a junior level not asking their foreman or their mechanic on why and how these things have to happen, or at the office, your billing manager not asking what bill needs to go out this week, or perhaps a permit coordinator not setting up the permit that needs to go out for the specific job this week, all the way to home. Perhaps something your child wants to ask you, but if you're always looking busy, or always pissed off, or not even willing to listen to them, why would your child come ask you a question? Sometimes about homework, when you're like, I don't want to deal with this shit, right? That's what creating the environment is. And again, you have to understand that this environment, this space you're creating, it's benefiting you and that person. So don't just think that, this is all for them. No, this is for you. This is as much for you as it is for them. Because if it's members of your team, or if it's customers, right? Someone from your customer base, or a potential new customer, or my God, what's more important? Your family, right? Wouldn't you want to have that ability to be able to communicate and have an open line of communication? And when I say communication, I'm talking about questions. Hey, Dad, how do you do this? Or why do you do that? Hey, boss, or hey, Jose, why do you do this? Or why do you do that? or a customer coming to you, why is it that we should do this? Why is it that we should go with you? Why is it that we should hire you? Or why is it our piece of equipment is not working? Or how will this benefit us? See, this type of space, this type of environment that you create opens up an amazing highway of information that goes both ways, right? So again, this is an environment. Now, how do you create it? How do you set the stage, right? You have to invite, okay? You have to invite them in. You have to have an open door, right? You have to be willing to listen, okay? You have to be willing to hear what they have to say, because the more you are willing to listen, the more you're willing to hear, the more you're willing to give time to these particular, whether it's employees, customers, family, the more trust will be built. And as trust is built, is exactly what I'm talking about. You're creating that environment. You're creating that special place where things happen, where knowledge is actually discovered, right? Where you're able to give an answer to a question that perhaps in your mind is silly, or, oh my God, I've done this already. But that's because you're that much more ahead at this point. This person perhaps is just starting out, or your child is a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, teenager, whatever it may be. I doubt a teenager's asking you questions, but still, you know what I'm talking about. So again, this is a practice, okay? Again, it starts with opening the door, offering that space for them to come ask you a question, you asking questions, okay? Because sometimes in you asking them questions, you actually create the necessity for them to want to ask you questions. So that's a little bit about creating environment, at least for this particular subject. For the most part, creating an environment, it's for whatever subject you want to use it, it's the same tactics. I'm more talking about the art of questioning, right? Because this is ultimately what we're going to be discussing during this episode, right? So another thing is discussing the answer. Why do you want to discuss the answer, right? Because if you start to study your own stages in life, right, you're going to see that after questions, answers are discovered, right? And after answers are discovered, you're going to see that it's going to be important that perhaps you know the answer and perhaps you understand the answer a certain way. It's going to be important to know that, or at least to try to get that at least try to understand whether the other party understands what you are understanding. Because I've always told my guys that there's a lot of stuff going on up here. And sometimes when I start talking, I go 100 miles an hour talking, right? Well, what might come out of my mouth might not necessarily match what was coming out, I was thinking about. And then, ready? The person that's listening to it, well, they got the same stuff going on. Who knows what they're going to hear? Who knows what's going on in their mind? And who knows how they're putting all this together? So this is why it's extremely important. After you've created that space and had that ability, or had those moments or those conversations where questions are asked and information is exchanged, that you discuss these answers, right? You discuss these answers to be able to pinpoint whether that person understood what you were talking about, and two is ready to find new questions, because ultimately what's going to happen is you're going to find new questions, right? See, that is the beauty of learning. Now, for a long time, I took that as that's crazy. How come there's another question? But now, in the stage I'm at, and all the learning I've been doing, all the work I've been doing, I've realized that it's these questions that help us grow, right? And again, if I have a question and I get an answer, it doesn't mean that's it, it's over, life's over. No, guess what? That answer sometimes spurs me or gets me to start doing whatever that was which creates a whole new array of questions, which guess what? Requires a whole new array of answers. So hopefully you can understand a little bit of what I've been putting together right now, which is one is, right? A is creating the environment, right? Offering that opportunity to have questions, right? No stupid question, basically, right? Just shoot the questions out. And two is now studying the answers, right? Trying to make sure that you understand the answer that you gave as well as the person receiving it. And then ultimately the beauty of it is finding the new questions, right? So the next part that I wanted to actually, I think it's very important. So you have a question, you have an answer. We've discussed this thing. Sometimes we're not going to discuss it at length, the way I was just talking about it, but you discuss it. And sometimes you go out on your own and you start to, break down what this question was or what this answer was. But ultimately what you have to do is now you got to put this answer to use. Why do you got to put it to use? You got to put it to use so you can see if this is real for you. See, sometimes answers for someone else may not be the answers for you, and it doesn't make them right and wrong. It just means that answer wasn't the answer for you, or that answer wasn't the answer for this particular scenario. Whatever the case, you won't know that unless you unless you start using this new answer, right? So remember, there's another part of this. This is why you still have to put this stuff to use, because there is a possibility that details are missed. So we created the environment. We discussed the answer. Or we created the environment. We discussed the question. We discussed the answer. Now we're putting it to use. Well, in putting it to use and reflecting back on once you use it, you're going to see it. Am I really, did I miss a detail? Perhaps I didn't do one of the items I had set forth I was going to do. And once again, it's none of this stuff is wrong. Basically, what I'm trying to explain to you is all this is a process. And perhaps there is a starting point, but there's never really an end. It just kind of repeats itself all over again, just constantly climbing, like the way you climb a set of stairs, right? Like you want to go to the top. Well, maybe you want to jump 3 steps, but ideally you take the first step, second step, third step, fourth step, and most likely you're not climbing all on your right foot, right? You're going right, left, or left, right. That's what this practice is about. That's what I wanted to more try to get into a very simple way, because believe me, I can turn this thing into a super complicated chain of events that is not going to help you. Now, why am I sharing this? Is because this is something I use in our company. Like I said before, I am all about questions. Okay. I have a ton of questions myself, right? At home, we discuss different topics, and usually they come up with questions. Sometimes I don't have the answers. And one of the things I've learned very, very, very clearly is when I don't have the answer, is to say the truth and say, you know what? I don't know the answer to that. Now, I may be able to go search for it. I may have to call someone else that isn't perhaps an expert on it. But the number one thing I'm going to ask of you to be present to is don't bullshit. Don't create an answer for something that you don't believe in. Or that if it's something based on truth, that it's not, that you just kind of make up on your own. Why you don't want to do that is, one is because, remember what I said at the beginning? That environment, that space, that's built on trust. And if you knowingly give someone who came to ask you a question something that's not real, and they go out and they believe is real, and now they begin to share this, and someone calls it out on them, well, most likely this is going to come back to you, and that trust is going to be what? It's going to have some turbulence, right? So the most important thing for you to do is to, And this is with your clients as well. Listen, when I deal with clients, the number one thing I hate saying to them is I don't know. But guess what? There's many ways to say I don't know. One is you can just say I don't know. One is, you know what? Let me look into that. Right? Let me look into that. Let me do some research on that. Let me check that out. But back to the same thing. What you don't want to do is give a BS answer, okay, to a customer, to your family, to your employees. You want to give them the best possible answer you can possibly give at that moment. And if the best possible answer at that moment is, let me get back to you, I am not sure, I'm not 100%, then that is what your responsibility is. Why? Because ultimately what we're trying to do here is build relationships. And which is what I said before, is that ability for that person to come ask you a question and for you to be able to there to listen, or vice versa, for you to go to that person and ask them a question, is based on trust, man. Okay? Is based on that relationship aspect of, right? That warm feeling of like, yeah, you know what? This is someone I can speak to. Okay? And obviously, you know, this is a life of an electrical contractor, right? So some of the aspects of it is customers, right? Don't you want your customer to be able to speak to you and openly share with you, right? If you can't have that with a customer, then what are you in business for? What are you, first of all, or even why do you even have that person as a customer if that's not something you can have as your employees? Well, if you can't have that with an employee, why is that person working for you? Why are you allowing that person into your circle? Okay? And your family. I mean, this one hits really close, right? If you cannot have these type of conversations with your loved ones, then you need to reevaluate your relationship with them. Once again, it ain't about being right and wrong. It's simply about you creating that space to be able to have these conversations that are based on questions and answers, right? Conversations, questions, all the same thing, okay? The ultimate goal here is for not just you to learn or for you to teach, it's for the other person to learn, okay? For the other person to learn, for guess what they're going to go do? Now they're going to go teach. They're going to go teach. If it's your employees, they're going to teach your guys. If it's your customers, guess what? They're going to teach they're going to teach the people around them, or they're going to teach perhaps your future customers that, hey man, this is the guy to deal with. And if it's your family, well, what bigger gift than for your family to build upon the legacy that you're working for, right? They're going to teach eventually their kids. So that is a kind of putting these three together, you know, the space for asking questions, the reviewing the answers and understanding that both parties basically understand each other. And three is actually putting them to use, right? Implementing them, right? So while I made it sound like a simple path, or perhaps I made it sound like a confusing path, I'm not sure. It's all going to depend on the way you hear it, but I don't want you to have to say like, oh, I got to create this space. How am I going to create this space? Dude, the space is created by simply opening the door. How do you open the door? Hey, Jesse, do you have a question for me? He's probably going to say no. And you just follow it up with like, well, just, and again, we're talking about a specific subject or whatever, no subject. Just say, if a question arises, just let me know. See, you just opened the door and then created that space for that person to walk in. So give these things a try. You know, I invite you to really put these things to work in your organization as well as with your customers. You're going to be, I feel like you're going to be very, very, very surprised at what happens. You know, more engaging conversations. Perhaps you're going to find that you're going to want to help out more people. You're going to want to perhaps open the door to new people, right? So, and then ultimately, like I said, remember questions, then you create answers, which help you create new questions, and you continue to climb that ladder, right? So as always, thank you for listening. If any of this you found valuable, hit that subscribe button. As always, remember to share this with someone that you think may need to hear this. See, there's someone that you may know that this can help in so many ways. All right? Feel free to comment below, and as always, catch you in the next one.